So this afternoon we'll be focused on helping a lot of you all understand how food and beverage brands scale their operations, thinking about the digital and the physical journey. We're joined by three unbelievable panelists that have been with ShipBob for quite some time. By very quick introduction, myself, Chris Kucher, I run our go-to-market for North America. I've been with ShipBob for about a year now. A lot of my background's in supply chain consulting, technology consulting, and happy to help the team to scale to the next level. So that being said, I'll start in this order. Aaron, why don't you do an introduction of yourself?
Hi, I'm Aaron Hackel, supply chain manager of Taste Salud, a hydration and immunity drink mix company that leans into our co-founders' Hispanic heritage to deliver authentic Hispanic-inspired flavors to our consumers that differentiates us from your traditional powdered drink mix.
Hi, I'm Brandon Castaneda, the co-founder and CEO of Easy Bombs. Easy Bombs is like a bath bomb, but for cooking. It's made of seasonings and spices, and it's meant to make authentic Mexican meals easily.
Hi, my name is Gustav Hossy. I'm the CEO of Chamberlain Coffee. Run the business alongside Emma Chamberlain. I think we are unique in the sense that we are a category leader in coffee and tea for the younger consumers, so specifically Gen Z.
So actually in reverse order now, since you just talked a bit about what makes unique, Gustav, why don't you just maybe talk about, we had a great conversation last night, in the world of high growth e-commerce, especially in food and beverage, rarely are you inventing something new, inventing a new segment. So Aaron and I talked a lot about, everyone initially knew who Liquid IV was, and that they are like the predominant player in the space, but now everyone's filtering off and finding new sub-segments. So Gustav, in your world, when you look at coffee industry, been around for a couple thousand years, and branding goes into a lot of it, what makes you all unique, and how are you using that branding experience to power that customer base?
Yeah, so I think for us it's really, understanding our consumers. We have developed products specifically for Gen Z, so really focusing on understanding what our consumers want. That specifically is iced coffee, iced matcha. Matcha is huge for the younger consumers. I think that's something that are having a big moment, and it's something that we are really leaning into. And then I also think it's just about understanding what kind of business model you want to run. For us, it's really about also being able to serve our customers during the day. So for us, it's really being active in all channels, right? So being active in D2C, Amazon, grocery, which is our highest growing channel right now, and then also cafes. I think Bobby from Shopify also said this thing about brick and mortar. And I think that's something that we're also seeing as a huge opportunity for us.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into the omnichannel growth in a second. But for yourself, Brandon, we talked last night, and you essentially did define a new segment. You're evangelizing, you're educating, you're using family, but also social. So talk a bit about what makes your brand unique.
Yeah, so what makes our brand unique is nobody has ever seen this form factor when you're talking about seasonings and spices. You walk through the aisle and you see the same things. It's either in a shaker bottle, it's in a packet, and there's really nothing that has been innovated in that category. So by us coming up with a new form factor, that immediately was able to help grab people's attention. But if you guys go to any of our socials, you'll see that my mom is the face of the brand. This is all of her recipes. These are the things that she used to make for us as kids. And what really has given us that competitiveness and that shift in getting people to want to choose us versus what's already currently available is the fact that they've been able to connect with that story. That here's mom out of her kitchen sharing her recipes with the rest of the world, and you actually can make this yourself with just 3 easy steps. So that's been the way we've marketed and put ourselves out there on social, and it's worked amazingly well.
Yeah, and lastly, Aaron, how about yourself?
So what makes Taste Salud unique is we really looked at Liquid IV, as you mentioned, as like the main player in the space and saw how they were like dominating the category. And so we knew that if we tried to compete one-on-one with Liquid IV, it wasn't going to be the most successful venture. So the two co-founders, Tyler and Josh, realized that they could really lean into Josh's Hispanic heritage to come up with those authentic flavors. Then Tyler came in and was like, well, we can also add in a immunity benefit claim, so that we can do 2-in-1 benefits with hydration and immunity. And between those two things, we're differentiated from the market and able to provide a unique aspect for our customers.
Okay. Let's pivot now to talking a bit about the growth trajectory. I mean, you, Gustav, you highlighted a bit about the omnichannel approach. Before we get there, you have to earn your market share, you have to grow your market share, retain your market share. Food and beverage is different, right? It's subscription purchase, regular purchase, weekly consumption. So your job is, I want to meet my customers where they are, whether it be digitally, whether it be in-store, whether it be subscription-based, online. So I would love each of you to talk about, maybe we'll start with Brendan to mix things up. Talk about how you manage that physical experience with that digital experience. How do you land them? How do you think about where to meet them where they are? Knowing that you have capital constraints. You can't meet everyone where they are at any given moment. So how have you thought about your growth strategy with digital and physical?
So it's been really different and unique for us. The company itself is just under 2 years old. November, we're going to be turning 2 years old. So as a company, we're still extremely young, but we experienced insane growth on TikTok to where we became the #1 food and beverage item on the platform for several months in a row. And it's really hard going from shipping orders out of mom's house where we're doing 4,000 in a week to now we have 10,000 orders happening every single day on TikTok. So in the beginning, it was really focused around inventory. How many can we produce, how fast we can produce them. This year has been a big change in that because now we're not only expanding into more online channels, but this year has been a big year to go into retail. So we've seen that customers want to buy the product and want to get it at a better price point because it's a $20 item and you have to pay $5 for shipping. It just makes way more sense in retail to be able to give them that value and the ability to get that plus everything else they would need with it, you know, the meat or the tortillas and things like that. So that's how we've been thinking about it, is how do we make it easier for our customer to not only purchase the product, but get everything else that they would want to cook that meal for their family. So retail's been a big focus in where we're heading right now.
Last night we talked a bit about how you have a lot of the data. You have that consumer data, you can do the attribution, you can do the 360 view of, are they avid on TikTok, do they buy through the store? But you can't really necessarily measure like that in-person purchase experience. So how are you managing the lack of data or opportunity thereof with the new digital move to actually measure that and where you put your inventory?
So what we're doing is we're taking a look at all of the history of all the sales that we've done, you know, whether it's through TikTok, Amazon, our website, and we're seeing where is the concentration of everybody at, because that's where we're actually choosing to put more inventory. It's hard to go into retail and say we're going to do these numbers. We have no clue what it's going to sell through at, right? But even on some of the tests that we're doing, by being strategic and placing it in the regions that we know it's going to be successful, we're hoping to win over the retailers by doing that and then start planning where's going to be the next places that we're going to pilot and test. Because although our flagship flavor, birria, might sell amazing in Los Angeles, it might not do so good in Omaha, Nebraska. So what flavors can we actually bring to that area too? So that's the kind of data that we're looking at.
For sure. So Gustav, for yourself, you mentioned expanding to matcha. Think about your sourcing. Think about your lead time. You're everywhere. You mentioned we're doing brick and mortar. We're getting more into other outlets. How are you managing your product lines, especially with, not necessarily from a fulfillment standpoint, but are you testing new markets? Are you testing established consumer base? Or are you going all out? We know where our product sells. Let's go all in. How are you managing like those new channels?
Yeah, obviously, I think the new macroeconomic environment, we've talked about tariffs, obviously, it's becoming very tricky, right? And then if you put a matcha shortage, I don't know how much you know about what's going on with the matcha shortage right now, but basically what is happening is that there's an extreme demand for matcha right now. And obviously it's coming mainly from Japan, and it's just making it really hard to meet the demand. So we have to plan ahead 1.5 years now to make sure that we basically have enough matcha.
Wow.
So you can imagine when you are forecasting out 1.5 years, it gets very tricky, especially when you're then also operating in retail, in grocery, which is, you know, our fastest growing channel. I think, is it not working? Okay, cool. So I think if for us thinking about each channel, I think we are trying to really, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We are trying to really think about it as each channel should have a hero strategy. And what that means for us is that we actually use D2C as a testing platform. We do a lot of limited drops, we do a lot of innovation, and then we see kind of what is the response we're getting from the consumers. And then we kind of take those learnings, and then we will use it in the grocery channel. I think the grocery channel for us is probably where we have the most natural fit. I think people buy coffee, tea, matcha when they buy their groceries. So for us, that's really where we can then take those products that really works well and then scale it up. But the thing about grocery is it's a really hard channel. It's very slow moving. Brandon talked about it. It's a very slow moving channel. It's very, very hard to scale in a way where you're not hitting a lot of bumps on the road. It can be very costly. And then there's just a lot on the logistics side as well, requirements, case pack, all this stuff. So you really have to pick your product you then put into grocery. Yeah.
Okay, Aaron, why don't you dovetail on that? Because again, going from a D2C, you own, the packaging experience, you can really craft it, you can own it, you know that customer experience. Then B2B comes calling, different compliances, different, we mentioned like label here, label there, case minimums, order value, monthly minimum. So you are all going from 60 plus SKUs, you're getting bigger, you're growing nearly 100,000 plus a year in terms of orders. So how are you thinking about, or monthly I should say, but how are you thinking about, are we ready to expand to an omni-channel consumer base?
Yeah, so retail really changes the game, like compared to D2C. You need to be a lot more on top of all your inventory because they're a lot less forgiving if you're out of stock. So I know one of the things that we've done is always make sure when we're launching it to retail that we have at least 2 manufacturers that can make our product, so we're not singularly reliant on any one. That also gives us some leverage to get some pricing comparisons and make sure that nobody's ripping us off. That's been especially important with all the tariffs that have come around because you might have one manufacturer that says that this item's going up, but if your other manufacturer is able to mitigate that or find another solution, well then you can figure out how to bring that to your other manufacturer. And quite frankly, with retail, you really do need the volume that 2 manufacturers can supply, while also being able to maintain your D2C business.
So keep this going. Then I want to go back to you, Gustav, because you have an ironic situation where you went from operating chief COO to CEO. But say you're able to, you have a surge in sales, or say someone like ShipBob saves you 5-10% on shipping costs. All of a sudden, you look at the P&L, you even do cash surplus. Are you reinvesting in the business? Are you reinvesting in R&D? Are you optimizing for more capital? So why don't you start with yourself? If you have more free cash flow, how are you thinking about more stores, more consumers, more R&D? How do you know what to do with that?
Well, I would say that we really invested all back into the business. We're constantly doing events. We're constantly trying to do things on our Instagram that are unique and provide really good value to our customers, but that really make them want to follow us and make them want to buy whatever we're coming out with next. So what was really cool is we just launched this greens and superfoods product, and we'd never done a greens and superfoods before, and customers had never tried it, but it was still one of our best launch days ever because we've really just invested a lot into the brand and the brand building so that when a customer sees a Taste Salud product, they know that it's a really good tasting and gonna beat out the competitors.
So how about yourself, Gustav, knowing that you've seen both sides of the fence from operational efficiency and quality and throughput to now managing a P&L, are you thinking about managing cash differently now?
I think, when you're an early stage business, right, you burn cash in a different way compared to being a more larger sustainable business. So I think it's really about where can you find those cost savings in the most efficient way. And I think, when I look at the P&L, it's obviously cost of goods, right? That's one place where you can really move the needle. The other place is fulfillment, right? Mm-hmm. And I think, we've been with ShipBob since we started the brand 5 years ago, and I think what really matters for us is 2 things, right? It's the convenience of not having to deal with a lot of friction and being able to sell product where the consumers are, and then it's about also having a good cost structure. I think 5% savings on fulfillment moves the needle much more than cutting an agency or something like that. Yeah. So I think it's really less work moves the needle more.
Yeah, typically fulfillment might be the second biggest line item on your expenditure. And you think about, I don't know if Casey's still in the room, but a line he always said is, brands thrive based on good marketing, good product, or good supply chain, meeting customer where they are. And if you can outsource one of the 3 key pillars to someone who specializes in doing this at a large scale, why not focus on the creative, the branding, than the actual physical product itself? So Brandon, for yourself, you're kind of at that crossroads where you've had the creative, you have a loyal customer base, now you're looking at expanding. So how are you taking the similar trend that they just talked about for your brand?
Well, in terms of expansion right now, I think what's really great is that there's a lot of opportunities that we have. There's a ton of retailers that have reached out to us that want to carry the product. And it's something that we do want to continue to explore, but what I've realized is that even though we're in the Walmarts now and we're just getting started with them, and now we've gotten in the door with Costco, we're not looking at taking on any more at this moment because we really want to just hit it so hard with these and just master that, because we're not in every single Walmart. It's about 1,500 out of the 4,500 they have nationwide, so there's still just so much more room to grow there. And let's say even we do reach the 4,500 Walmarts at some point here, there's also expansion in the set, in the mod itself. You know, we're only talking about these initial flavors that we have today. What can this concept of a bomb of seasonings do? There's just so many ideas and so many products that we're working on behind the scenes. So that's the way we look at expansion. And the other thing that's a limiting piece for us at the moment is all of the hires that we have to do. You know, from going from a team of nobody 19, 20 months ago to now we're about 30 people, it's been challenging finding the right people for these very technical things that we're doing. Going into retail, none of us had that experience before, so we're having to find the right people that know how to do that, find the right people that mastered those things, and that's how we're looking at expanding, is building the team and just nailing it when it comes to Walmart, Costco, and getting that done.
So let's end on maybe a more relevant. Everyone we talked, you heard Viori's story, you heard Bobby talking about this omnichannel ecosystem, and ShipBob, where Melissa highlighted is that we want to put your product everywhere, anywhere you need to be with one fulfillment ecosystem. But D2C is still the core of who we are. It's still the core of who your brands are. It's still the roots of where your data lives. You want to own that experience. So maybe as we close out here, then open for a few questions. Why don't you highlight what D2C means for your brand in 2025 going to the next year? Does it play a new role? Are you using that data strategically? Will it always be that long-term customer value because you landed them? So why don't you start?
Sure. So I actually agree a lot with Gustav that we use our D2C channel as a way to kind of prove to retailers like what items are actually selling. But in general, we really like to prioritize our website a little bit more than other channels, just slightly, so that, again, there's that reason for the consumer to follow us on Instagram, to actually go on our website, where we do make more profit than other channels. So just going into 2026, we still have a big goal to keep increasing our website. But what we've seen, though, is that, if you're in retail, if you're on Amazon, if you're on TikTok Shop, that it's not going to necessarily take away from your website business. In fact, it might actually bring more people as long as you're constantly providing value. So we always launch product about a week before on our website. We always have the best deals on our website. You can get it at all these other channels, but there's still a reason to always go to our website to get, if you're a true Salud customer, to get the best deal.
Yeah. What's actually kind of funny about where we're at is we were so busy last year just using TikTok Shop. I think it made up 95% of our sales because we just didn't have any inventory to do anything with. So the website for us as a company has kind of become the stepchild of our business. It's just kind of put it over to the side. We have since been investing a lot more into bringing that back and growing that, because we do understand that whole concept of getting that first-party data, having that connection with customers. And now that we've been actually making strides towards improving that, we're going to be using it to explore new product launches, explore new samples. If you're a subscriber of ours, we might just send you some of our new samples each month of different products if you return a survey back to us. That way we know which ones people are enjoying, who wants us to go with this flavor versus that one. And that's going to be the big focus for the rest of the year with the website.
Okay, Gustav.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of the same, right? I think it's innovation for us. I think it's also partnerships. We are doing a lot of collaborations with other brands, and this is a great platform to do that. We have done, for instance, we did an 818 collaboration where we did a limited drop on our website. We also did the first ever brand collaboration on a product site with Pinterest. And the nice thing about D2C is you just have that full flexibility to really fully own something like that, and also get the instant data from what the customers like. Yeah.
Okay. So in closing, why don't each of you maybe do a 30-second or a 45-second, when you look at a lot of these brands in the audience like this, I had the pleasure of speaking with last night, they're maybe at the earlier stages of their food and beverage growth journey. And if you maybe on the realm of operations, what would one piece of advice you would advise them on as they scale from maybe that 10% growth curve up to where you are all at today?
So I definitely cannot emphasize enough having multiple options for manufacturing, or maybe you have your own in-house manufacturing, so then you need to have multiple options for your ingredients. because you just never really want to be in a situation where you can't scale because a supplier isn't able to come through for you. So that would be my biggest piece of advice for
because like Brandon said last night, out of stock can be a good thing, but it should be because you have reliant suppliers that causes demand, not because you don't have the inventory that is even possible.
I think if you're out of stock, you want it to be because you like really you're really over exceeding your expectations. You don't want it to be because you could have expected it, but you just didn't have the supply chain to support it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would also have to agree with the supply chain side of things. That's been something that's crucial for us. I mean, I talk to so many different brands, and they go through the forecasting they have to do. Like even how you said, a year and a half out just sounds insane. Like we've just barely been around for a year and a half, and I have to think that far ahead. It sounds really far out. So with us, what really was helpful is that we were able to find a strategic manufacturer that was local to us. And we did anything and everything that it took to make sure that we never sold out. There were moments we did, but I mean so much so that we were having our sticker manufacturer, because every bag had a sticker on it, he was making like 20,000 stickers every single day. And at the end of the night, we'd throw those in an Uber so they can Uber it over to our manufacturer so they could sticker all night long, and we have product for the next day. So like manufacturing is key. We could have never grown to be this size if we didn't have that set up. So I would think that's important.
And Gustav, in closing?
Yeah, I think, maybe taking it one level higher, just like a business advice, selling food and beverage products, I think that it's important to understand, obviously, the price point, right? And then you talk manufacturing and making sure you have healthy margins. But I think for us, it's really been a learning that if you want to operate in the online space with food and bev, I think it's really important to incorporate subscription. Think about getting predictable revenue streams, and in that way grow in a sustainable way. I think that's really important, and it's a learning because when you start a business, you'll be in front of so many opportunities, and you have to pick the right ones. So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Last night at dinner, someone said, we were talking, just like everything's inbound. We have constant boutiques, big retailers calling us, but you have to start to say no to manage a healthy supply chain and actually a healthy customer base. Because is that one store in the remote part of the US, is that really worth exerting yourself to get that repeat customer base versus pick your big metropolitan pockets, establish a loyal founding, and then start to scale from there?